There's a runaway trolley barrelling down the railway tracks. On the tracks are 5 people unable to move. You're next to a lever. If you pull this lever, the trolley will switch to a different set of tracks. However, you notice there is a person on the other track. What do you do?
The trolley problem is a classic moral conundrum, exploring many of the greatest hits of ethics, the morality of choice, the greater good, and does the end justify the means? The specifics of the exercise change, but the core assumption remains the same. There is a calamity, a victim, a greater victim, and a choice of sacrifice. The question at the core is it better to let something objectively bad happen than to intervene and to do something objectively immoral to achieve the objectively better outcome? And then we, of course, start to toy around the parameters. What if it's a child? What if it's a sickly obese man? What if it's a doctor that can save lives? What if it's 100 convicts against a group of elderly? What if it's a doctor against a young child? When taken into its logical extremes, the trolley problem becomes, in its own absurdity, a form of critique. Life cannot be led by just knowledge quantified by rigorous thinking, debating, and arguing. It just doesn't work, since we are not disembodied logical entities operating under some predetermined axiomatic template. We're messy and illogical, but most important of all, we are embodied beings. And these hypothetical scenarios can't grasp the multiplicity of our lived, embodied experience. Life isn't black or white, it's grey, and it's grey only. As a recovering metaphysics abuser, I hate these types of questions and thought experiments for a couple of reasons. First is a more intellectual reason, if you will. It is because the morality embedded in life isn't about min-maxing some pre-qualified and quantified moral codex to the T. Life is made of the consequences of our choices, and life is led by coping and adapting ourselves to the consequences of the choices we make. The trolley scenario is an excellent social tool to deep dive into a series of moral arguments, and thus an excellent form of detecting and avoiding all the people who are really into stuff like this. That said, there is a second, more personal reason I despise the trolley problem and its ilk. I need to know these things. I'm what you'd call a opinionated person. Were you feeling particularly nice that day? My mind is full of tidbits, advice, opinions, explanations, and I do struggle to leave them all unvoiced. I'm a mansplainer ready to remove the misogyny from the concept. I am the splainer. And though I've tried over the years to rid myself from my besserwisser tendencies, I seem to be a creature of habit. Were you to mention me an interesting article, news, book, movie, story, you name it, I'd jump in mid-sentence telling you I'd already heard about it, and tell it to the end of myself, thus robbing you the pleasure of telling a good story. And then I'd probably continue by telling what I think of the matter before careening without a warning into some completely different topic that somehow makes sense in my scatterbrain, and in my scatterbrain only. It's not about ego. Okay, it's probably somewhat about ego, but more than anything, I think it's about safety of sorts, about keeping the chaos at bay. If you ask me about something, I can't just bring myself to say the 3 most frightening words in the English language. Instead of embracing the certainty of uncertainty, I'll go on mad conjunctures of possible reasons, ideas and explanations, while simultaneously making perfectly clear to everyone involved that I have no idea, no expertise of what I'm talking about, and thus I'm probably utterly off base. Anything is better than uttering those horrible words. I need to fill the box of things I know to the brim, since the box that contains all the things I don't know is a tidal wave of chaotic potential, so massive in its expanse that it can with ease drown me, crush me, sink me into the oblivion of potential. There is so much of the infinity and so little of me against it. Bulwarking myself against this vast ocean is the only way to live, the only way to remain sane. Right? Right? That said, let's return to the trolley problem and update it for a bit. What if you were traveling in an automated vehicle, a car that was controlled not by a human of flesh and blood, but a consciousness of non-organic origin? A scenario very much just around the corner. They are testing this stuff out at this very moment. The car is about to hit a group of children that have just bolted out from somewhere. Kids are like that. No amounts of AI development can change that. So is the AI monitoring the vehicle supposed to crash to the side, killing you in the process but saving the children? Or kill children to protect you? Why? Because you're the de facto passenger? Because you're the owner of the vehicle? Because you've sunk assets and capital into the machinery it's supposed to hold your life and its continuation as a pre-axiomatic value, others be damned? That doesn't feel like a particularly solid moral claim. Would you step into a car that would sacrifice innocent bystanders for your safety? Then again, would you step into a car that would literally throw you under the bus for the greater good, whatever the very non-human script-based algorithm has deemed it to be? Would you trust something so moral? When distilled into its bare essence, Soma, Frictional Games' sci-fi horror walking simulator thingy, is a dramatized trolley problem. Instead of a single mind-bending moral conundrum, we are drip-fed with horrible choices for the time span of 6 to 8 hours. We uncover the tracks, the trolley, the people on the tracks, the levers and our ability to choose in tiny increments. Usually we understand the full horror of the situation only after we've already pulled the lever or walked away from the scene. The premise of Soma ticks many of the classic tropes and questions drudged through in sci-fi tradition. What is the future of AI? How bad can we fuck things up by messing with technology without proper humility? Can consciousness be simulated and digitized, giving enough raw data and computing power? What would the nature of these digitized beings be like? How much of our humanity is embedded into our organic embodied being? What makes us human? When and why should we stop treating these digitized beings as humans? Soma is also a post-apocalyptic tale, depicting mankind's struggles after the end of all times has already happened. The driving force of the narrative is to escape to the stars and beyond from the now barren and unlivable surface of the earth. A trope also not that uncommon for sci-fi literature. But there are a couple of features that set Soma apart from the corpus of sci-fi entertainment. First one is its medium as a video game. What makes the trolley problem so flawed is its detachment from the actual embodied life. It's an entirely different matter to read a conundrum from the paper than to watch from the side as a trolley rams half a dozen of children into a bloody pulp because you decided to act, because you decided to pull or not pull a lever. And while I'm not willing to state the hyperbole that video games could somehow imitate or depict human experiences in a wholesome, realistic manner, drama, especially embodied drama, is still probably the most powerful tool we have as a species to create empathy and to occupy different viewpoints. Soma leans hard on this power of narrative embodiment. The game is presented entirely in first person from start to finish, and there is no outside narrative exposition. Soma goes all out to make sure you know this is up to you. It's your hand on the lever. The second thing that makes this game so effective is its almost Socratic nature. Soma's focus is not to be just a compelling mystery or an interesting story. Its main mission is to poke holes into your axiomatic presumptions, and it does this with surgical precision and detachment. Throughout its story, Soma takes its narrative pliers and goes righty-tighty on your own moral axioms time and time again. There's no escape, no way you're walking away from this game unscathed. It wants you to understand that all your existential presumptions, considering what makes us human and valuable individuals, all your ideals considering these things are just words. And the only reason you can hold on to these ideas is because the world has never tested your mettle. You only think you know what is right and what you're really like, because you've never been put into a situation where those ideas and ideals are tested. When push comes to shove, you're utterly rudderless. And when you're lying on the floor crying or screaming into a pillow due to all this Socratic dissection, then and only then Soma decides to show mercy and roll credits, leaving you to your own devices on how to dig yourself out of this existential sinkhole. Oh, and the sentence you're screaming into that pillow over and over again when you're lying on the floor. The story of Soma begins in a basic flat where we assume control over a basic guy, Simon. Through dialogue and contextual hints, we discover that we have been in some sort of car accident that has left our brain somewhat screwed. So screwed that we have guinea-pigged ourselves into some sort of human trial for a new experimental treatment form. The plan is novel. Our brain is to be scanned as a digitized representation, and then instead of hacking our one and only, quite rare and much needed brain with all the possibly futile and hazardous treatments, the doctors can run accurate simulations of the treatments onto our brain scan. And only once a fitting treatment is found, they can start the treatment on our actual brain. What could go wrong?
Say cheese.
The scanning commences, and we are instantly transported into some sort of industrial facility, which obviously took a wrong turn through some Silent Hill-esque shenanigans. Everything is FUBAR. Everybody is dead. Everything is in ruins. The hallways are filled with creepy aquatic robot-human monstrosities that want to rip us to shreds upon meeting. And here's the real kicker. It's the year 2104. Mankind has gone extinct, and we are at the bottom of the goddamn Atlantic Ocean. So, all in all, shit's not great. It's up to us to discover how did we end up here, what the hell happened to this place, and how can we get out. Not counting the big, slightly murderous machine that wants to tear us to pieces, one of the first things we meet is Carl Semken, a former employee of the facility. Carl has gotten himself into a little pickle. His body, or what remains of it, is stuck on a conveyor belt. While we can see clear as day that he is a broken down machine, in a desperate need of a mechanic instead of medic, we can't persuade Carl out of his delusions. His physical body is broken, his limbs, bones are broken, muscles and sinews are torn. That's the reason why he can't move. The ground is covered in his blood. He needs a goddamn doctor, and he needs it now. Why are we joking around about mechanic in a situation as dire as this? We leave Carl with his delusions and promise to return to him with help should we find it. Soon, a problem emerges. Due to a failure in the electric distribution system, we need to reroute power. However disillusioned he might be about his current physical state, he clearly has the capacity to suffer. We are left with two options. We can deactivate the security doors, the only thing standing between us and the creepy nautical murder monster that we managed to run away from just earlier, or we can run the current through the conveyor line. This or this. Just like Carl couldn't fathom the state he seemed to embody, we too are met with a situation that defies our own understanding of the current situation. We get trapped into a sealed room filling with water.
Shit!
And
shit! Where should I? Oh,
we drown. But, quite shockingly enough, the mere act of drowning doesn't seem to bother us that much.
What the hell? How is this possible? This is insane!
Submerged underwater and very much undrowned, we continue to make our way forwards. Upon meeting Catherine Chu in the comms tower of the facility, we are forced to swallow a couple of more unnerving realizations. Dr. Chu isn't strictly speaking human, and neither are we. We are mockingbirds, digitized consciousness inhabiting a mechanical body. We are no longer the same Simon who sat in the chair over 100 years ago. From the moment we rose from the scanning machine, we've been something different. We are a grotesque mashup of a diving suit, binoculars, and some electronics strung together by a substance called structure gel. A no more nails type sci-fi substance that can stitch together matter both organic and inorganic. This delusion we embodied, the mind's willingness to maintain some sort of structural status quo, was so powerful that even the act of drowning couldn't shatter it entirely. Was our delusion no different than Carl Semken's delusion of his broken body? Only when meeting Catherine, the facade comes to an end and the veil is lifted.
Have you looked at yourself lately? You're a walking, talking diving suit with some electronics slapped on for good measure.
I don't...
You don't want to think about it? We'll start thinking about it.
I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this. I want out.
The experimental scanning procedure couldn't save Simon. He died a mere month after starting the trial treatments, and 100 years later, mankind followed suit.
The sky is pitch black with smoke. The ocean is dark. Incredibly dark. In the distance, I can see land. According to navigation, it's Lisbon and the coast of Portugal. Any signs of life? Over. Hopper? It's on fire. Everything is on fire. The flames, they're reaching all the way into the sky. It's unreal. Any signs of life? Over. No. Nothing but a massive firestorm covering the continent.
An asteroid hit Earth, just as mankind was preparing for the 23rd century and wiped out most of the life on the surface. The only ones to escape the firestorms ravaging the surface were a group of researchers living in Pathos 2, the underwater research facility we are currently residing in. Amongst the survivors, a desperate plan to save the remnants of humanity emerged. The brain scan taken from Simon 100 years ago acted as a blueprint on top of which the technology to digitize human consciousness was built on. The researchers sought to digitize their brains into a vessel, an ark that could then be launched into space. There, the digitized remnants of mankind could remain for thousands of years as life on Earth slowly ceased to exist. Catherine was the engineer spearheading the project, and now, with our help, she can see the project into its completion. We agree to Catherine's pleas and help her to launch the Ark. As Catherine is just a disembodied mind without a functional body, Simon is left to his own devices when traveling through the rundown facility. When not connected to some sort of electrical port, Catherine travels neatly in Simon's pockets inside the Omni tool he carries around. For the most time, we are doomed to wander the creepy hallways of Pathos 2 alone. Until we come across K8, a cute helper droid blobby thing that can open rusted doors, repair circuits, and move weights. K8 is a blessing bestowed upon you and the only companion you have in this hellhole at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. But because in Soma we can't have nice things, a situation presents itself when we arrive to the Delta site. For plot reasons, we need a certain chip we can acquire only by two means. We need to scrap K8, our beloved mechanical blobby companion, thus leaving us to fend for ourselves. The rusted doors will remain shut, and the unliftable weights remain unlifted. Or we can decommission JVD Goya, the mockingbird housing the consciousness of JVD Goya. He prances around the site, the ocean floor, content and completely oblivious to the fact that he is no longer human. At this point, we should more or less be on board with the notion that the mockingbirds, though no longer human, are still very much beings with wants, needs, thoughts, a sense of identity, a sense of self, and an affinity towards fear, pain, and death. Is the help K8 could provide us on our quest to save the Ark more important than Javid's right to exist, to not be unceremoniously decommissioned for convenience sake? On our way to the theta site of the facility, we meet Robin Bass, a former engineer of the complex. Coming across us, she expresses great concern of the Ark. Was the project successful? Did it work? Are we at the Ark? We don't have the heart to tell her that this is not the Ark. To tell her she is, in fact, embodied in a broken machine, unable to move, marooned at the bottom of the ocean till the end of time, perhaps. Distraught and not knowing what else to do, we lie to her. This is the Ark. The project was a success. Everything is just fine, and the others will be joining us shortly. Before we leave, we can unplug her power source and let her slowly drift away into peace and quiet, knowing everything is just right, knowing everything will be.
Let me go!
Or we can just go on and leave her be, accompanied till the end of days by our reassuring words. Do we have the right, the duty to end her? We can't simply abandon someone, no matter how disillusioned, into a lonesome eternity in the bottom of the ocean. But is there pain here? Unbearable suffering? How can we determine which kind of existence is worth experiencing? A code is needed to reach an inner portion of the facility. The problem is the specific security code was handed down verbally amongst the crew, and now the whole crew is dead. But fear not. As a part of the Ark project, Catherine took neurobrain scans of the multiple crew members on the site, amongst them Brandon Warren, the last known bearer of the code. We'll just pop his consciousness inside a simulation and ask him about the code.
Congratulations, Mr. Wan. The scan was successful.
Sean? Where's Alice?
She had to leave. Listen, I really need to know the new security cipher.
What? Why? Why would you need that? This is a trick.
No, it's okay, I promise.
I knew you couldn't be trusted. None of this is real. You won't break me, WoW. You hear me? You won't break me!
With every simulation, we bring Brandon back, and every failure casts him back into the nothingness. We force him to go over and over again the same horrifying trauma we went through in the beginning of the game. From his viewpoint, time after time, Brandon sits into the scanning chair and wakes up in the dark nothingness, or a simulated room, or a ski loft, or a beach, the disembodied voice of Catherine echoing from somewhere, demanding for a code. Regardless of the variables, Brandon realizes something is wrong. He freaks out and his mind breaks. The simulation crashes and Brandon is gone. By scouring through Brandon's personal belongings, we figure out a way to deceive him. Dr. Wan was intimate with another crew member. Using her neuroscan data, Catherine can construct a simulated module of Wan's companion and thus gain Brandon's trust. Yay, this doesn't feel morally troublesome at all. After God knows how many simulations, the deception proves fruitful and we can release poor Brandon to the rest. Before we move on, we can erase all the dormant neuro brain scans in the database. Is it better for these scans to be deleted instead of leaving the door open for the possibility that someone could put them through similar tribulations we just did with Brandon? What type of existence is worth preserving? When the scanning project began at Pathos 2, it became evident the thought of multiple copies of the same consciousness existing simultaneously proved disturbing for many. A belief started to spread amongst the employees. After the scan, the resulting two entities were clearly different, differentiated by time, experience, and happenstance. But for a split moment, there is a singularity between the two minds. Now, if the original mind was to cease existing before any more lived experience occurred, wouldn't the original mind, in a way, live on as the only singular entity? If you were to, slit your wrists immediately after the scanning process, could your original being by that way be transferred to the Ark? Could suicide claim you a ticket to salvation? This romanticized yet fundamentally flawed misconception of how the scanning process works led to a wave of suicides and put the Ark project on indefinite hold. Another analogy also emerged amidst the faculty of Pathos 2, who were desperate to come into terms with this new, unnatural split state of existence. A coin toss. When the singular being splits into two differentiated entities, roles are assigned. The original mind can either be transferred into a new state of being, while the new copy fills the old one. One is destined to move forwards, while the other one stays put. A 50-50 chance, a coin toss. This idea is false, like the fable of the non-differentiated singularity. There is no assigning of the roles, no continuation of the self, no return into singularity after the differentiation. The copied consciousness always remains the same, while the new one exists wholly and only as a new being. There is no going back. It's Ctrl-C plus Ctrl-V, not Ctrl-X plus Ctrl-V. Catherine also provides Simon with the analogy of the coin toss. With this idea, she compels the distraught Simon to move forward with their quest to launch the Ark into space, and to transfer their own consciousness into the Ark. And poor, naive Simon, not knowing any better, buys into this hopeful narrative of redemption that his only companion is feeding him. To reach the launch site of the Ark, we need to descend into the abyss, the deep, dark bottom of the ocean floor. The problem is, our body, the diving suit we are tied into, can't handle the crushing pressure of the underwater oblivion. We're gonna need a bigger suit. After some scouring, we managed to reclaim and repair a more powerful diving suit into which Catherine promises to transfer our mind. But if you've been paying attention, at least more than poor jaded Simon here, you already know where this is headed.
or something?
What was that?
We wake up in a slightly gross, new and improved suit, but to our dismay and horror, can hear the voice of someone from the other booth. Our voice. The difference between copy-paste and cut-and-paste is made clear to Simon in the most horrifying manner imaginable. We are no longer the same Simon we were seconds ago. We are Simon 2.0, 3.0 if you count in the original Simon who died 100 years ago. Confused and horrified, we are forced to make a choice. The old Simon, the just a few seconds ago us Simon, can't follow us to where we are going. We are descending into the abyss. The pressure of the deep sea would crush him. We either let him wake up alone and realize what has happened. We abandoned him to the depths and went on to the Ark without him. Or we could just pull the plug. He wouldn't know. He wouldn't suffer. Simon would live on as a singular entity, just like before. Are we not the same Simon who sat in the scanning machine, plus then some? Would anything really be lost of Simon if we pulled the plug? What would be gained if we maroon him here? In the infirmary of the Tau site, we find Sarah Lingwall. As the only remaining survivor of her marooned team, the duty of guarding the Ark fell on her. For months, she has sat in the infirmary, alone, hooked up on life support, cut off from everyone, oblivious to the chaos that has claimed her station. Sarah also holds the dubious joy of being the last human alive in existence. Upon hearing the news of what has become of Pathos 2 and the rest of her comrades, Sarah has a request for us. She wishes to die. Too weak to move herself, she needs us to unplug her life support. We can fulfill her wish and sit with her till the end. We can show her mercy and bring on the final extinction of man, be there for her and watch quietly as the final remnant of mankind slowly draws her last breath. What really is there left to accomplish by not granting her this final wish? We can't rejuvenate mankind. That ship has sailed long ago. But we can decline her request. We can decide that the decision to end mankind is not ours to make, that we don't have the right to pull the plug. The show must go on. And so we can just take the Ark from Sarah and walk away with her desperate pleas accompanying our final descent. Do we own some sort of allegiance to mankind? Are we indebted to go on when there is literally no one left? Before entering the launch site of the Ark, we are given the opportunity to destroy the Warden unit, the AI entity behind most of the horror we witnessed. It was the WoW AI that loaded up all the neuroscans in the different machines that keeps breeding these creepy aquatic monstrosities we've been running away from and hiding from, that keeps the crew of Pathos 2 in this horrifying stasis of undeath. The underlying problem isn't the AI, it is semantics. The Warden unit is doing exactly what it is supposed to be doing, as effectively as it manages. It protects and upholds life.
The WoW is reaching out to every machine, every life form, to manipulate, to control. It's trying to help save its creators from all this, just like the protocol demands. But really, what is good enough? Where is the line drawn for what is human and what is not? Would walking corpses do? Would a group of machines thinking they're human be acceptable? We can't trust a machine to know, to understand what it means to be.
The termination of the Warden unit will free Pathos 2 from this limbo. Mankind, along with the other deep-sea life forms the WoW has started to incorporate under its sway, will cease to exist in this new state of being. life on Earth will return to something resembling the state of the primordial oceans, from which complex life emerged out of eons ago. Maybe it's for the better. Perhaps a hard reset on existence is better than this transhumanist hellscape. But what if something truly magnificent could, in time, rise from all this? Would that justify all the horror? Life as we know it took billions of years to emerge from the primordial soups, and it is unknown if that has ever occurred anywhere else in the whole history of time and space. Do we have the right to wipe it all out, just out of some arbitrary moral sentiment of mercy and human decency? After all the hardships and near-death experiences, after all the moral conundrums, railways, trolleys, and levers pulled, Simon and Catherine managed to launch the Ark into space, against all odds. Running against the ticking clock, Catherine even manages to upload both of their consciousness aboard the Ark.
4, 3, 2,
Fuck yeah, we made it!
Whoa. Is this... Did it work?
Mankind lives on in this altered state of existence, and the digital colony can remain for God knows how long. For a game as dark, bleak and demoralizing as Soma, this scene is quite uplifting and poetic. The game closes as Simon runs towards Catherine in this serene, paradisal promised land where they can both thrive without care. But this isn't the only ending we are provided. It's copy-paste, remember, not cut and paste. The scanning is complete in the nick of time, and the Ark is launched.
4,
But
3, 2,
Fuck yeah, we made it!
I'm still here. I'm still here. Catherine? Catherine?
I'm here.
What the hell happened? What went wrong?
Nothing. They're out there, among the stars. We're here.
No. We were getting on the Ark. I saw it. It finished loading just before it launched.
Yeah, I saw.
Then why are we still here?
Simon, I can't keep telling you how it works. You won't listen. You know why we're here. You were copied onto the Ark. You just didn't carry over. You lost the coin toss. We both did. Just like Simon at Omicron, just like the man who died in Toronto 100 years ago.
No, this is bullshit. We came all this way. We launched the Ark.
I know it sucks, but our copies are up there. Catherine and Simon are both safe on the Ark. Be happy for them.
Are you crazy? We're gonna die down here with those fuckers living at large on a spaceship. They're not us. They're not us.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Simon. I'm proud of what we did. We made sure that something of the hundreds of thousands of years of human history survives, that something lives on.
Oh, fuck this. Fuck this. Fuck you. Fuck you, Catherine. You lied. And I believed in you. I trusted you. You said we're getting on the fucking Ark.
We are on the Ark, you idiot! I didn't lie. I can't be responsible for your goddamn ignorance. You
Fuck! Catherine? Please don't leave me alone. Catherine? Catherine?